Welcome to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
I'm Shannon Lawrence.
And I'm MB Partlow.
Quick content warning before we get started. This podcast may contain language and disturbing content, so enter at your own risk. Hello.
Hello.
I was like, do I have anything to talk about right now?
I do.
I
do. Because, we'll have seen it all by the time this airs, but the new season of Reacher has started. Are you watching it?
So we realized that somewhere along the line in season 2, we just forgot to keep watching. So we have to go back.
So is this season 3? I didn't like season 2. 3. Season 2 was dull.
I think that's it. Is we were just like, is season 3 better?
Season 3 is way better. And there is a scene where he has to meet someone. I'm not going to give away all the details. This doesn't matter because it's been memed out the wazoo. He has to meet somebody. So he has to swim across an inlet. So he comes walking up the road. It's dark out to meet this woman. And he's just wearing his boxer briefs and he's all wet.
Oh, you were mad about that, right?
And she goes, and the character, and it is in character for her, she goes, oh, fuck. I was like, yeah, what she said. And then you get another one, same shot, but he's walking away, and I'm just like, that is so hard to look at.
That is impossible. I'm looking away now in a minute.
And because you've been to the burlesque workout class, so there's a door at each end of the studio. Mm-hmm. So when the burlesque class goes in, there's a hot yoga class that's letting out. So people are walking by. So when there's a particular individual who, when he leaves the hot yoga class, and he's very tall and he's very fit, shall we say. He's not Jack Reacher fit, but he's fit.
Right.
And he has on the tiniest pair of shorts and a wet t-shirt because he's been in hot yoga. Uh-huh. But when he walks by the first door, the instructor of the class goes, MB, psst. So he head nod. So I know to crane around and look.
Working together.
Yep.
It's like wingmanning.
It's called cooperation. We're both just enjoying the view. I don't go out and trip him. I try to throw myself under him before he hits the floor. It's just, and if you walk around, I think the guy knows what he looks like, and he's not.
He wouldn't be wearing tiny shorts to hot yoga if he didn't feel like he wanted, It's like, pretty sure if he didn't have any self-esteem that he'd be wearing more clothing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just turn and I go, he's wet.
Man, I cannot. The smell in the hot yoga places.
Oh yeah,
always a lot for me. So it's like, ooh, people do not smell good when they all gather in a sweaty, hot yoga room.
Perhaps that's why I enjoy the glance from afar.
Right? Like, that's great over there. I'm not going to smell you.
I can't imagine. I'm going to be really gross. I can't imagine what it's like when someone passes gas in the hot yoga room.
Oh, God.
Right?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reason number 412 for not taking hot yoga.
Right. That, and I would like to not pass out. Pots, not great for that shit, turns out. Like, not great for anything these days anymore.
I can't imagine. I don't want to. I have no desire to try hot yoga.
No.
And I could be wrong. It could be the most fabulous thing.
Oh, no, I can tell you for fibro, it would probably be magical. But if I'm going to pass out every time I have to get up out of a position, I think that's not optimal.
That seems to be, yeah.
Remember, when hot yoga became super popular, it was right around the first time when they were telling me it was vasovagal syncope instead, because they're like, it's temporary and you'll grow out of it when you're 20s. Okay, didn't. And that's how they decide you have POTS, apparently, because that's what the pediatrician told me for my daughter, and I was like, okay.
Nice.
They just don't like to call it POTS when you're younger because they're hoping that you'll grow out of it.
Well, there is so much shit that can go wrong with kids that they do grow out of.
Yeah.
Not everybody does.
Yeah, that's true. If you have really bad allergies as a kid, you're supposed to hopefully grow out of it, is what I was told. But now I don't know how true that is, and if that's just one of those stupid-ass doctor things they say that's bullshit.
I do not know.
I don't know. See, my son's got worse as he got older, but he didn't have severe allergies when he was little.
Oh.
Yeah. Whereas my brother was the boy in the bubble. And while he still has allergies, they're nothing like when he was little. So he did, I think, kind of grow out of a lot of it.
Well, and a lot of people no longer live where they grew up. So I wonder if that's part of it. It's all new allergens.
He was here. So for him, that one doesn't work. But it could for us. Because, like, yeah, my mom went back to Oregon. She was like, oh, my allergies are so bad here. And then I went out and I was fine. But I only lived there till I was 7.5, you know? Mm-hmm. So and then I was in Maryland, then I was here. You move around enough, whereas she'd just grown up in Oregon, period.
Well, the last 2 times I thought I had allergies, it was COVID. So.
Wow. Well, I'm doing the allergy drops, which I didn't even know existed.
What?
I went to like just be tested and do allergy shots again. And they were like, so do you want the shots or the drops? And I was like, the what now? And it's just that they're like, you drip it under your tongue from this little bottle, right? And you let it sit there for 2 minutes, and then you're not allowed to eat or drink for 15 minutes.
Okay.
And that's it. So much easier than having to go into an office.
Does it taste bad, though?
Actually, it tastes kind of sweet, which is weird, huh?
Huh.
Yeah. It's like, you guys add sugar to this? Because I appreciate you.
Yes.
Or is it just naturally sweet to drink allergens? But
there's all that pollen in there, sweetening it up.
I think they told me at the beginning that you'll feel the effects faster, so you'll start having relief faster, but that it might be a longer course than shots.
Huh.
So yeah. But my son did the shots, and boy, his allergies still suck. Like, they helped me a lot when I did them, and I think they're helping him, but not great.
I've had, when the girls were little, like when I first moved out here, there were a few springs where my allergies just killed me. And they tend not to anymore.
Oh, good.
Well,
apparently the shots did a lot for my dog allergy. It was one that didn't come back as fully as it had been before, even after they wore off.
Nice.
Because it had been over a decade. And they're supposed to last up to a decade. So, here's to another decade. I'm hoping. Get that out of the way.
Yeah.
And in Mexico, my allergies aren't bad. That's nice.
There's
a lot of growing things right there, but not
yes
pine trees, which is one of my big allergies.
That's one of Lucy's.
Yeah, well, Colorado. So we're surrounded by 11 billion different kinds of pine trees.
I've never lived anywhere that didn't have pine trees, I don't think. Because I can remember one time in North Carolina, it was springtime and a big storm was coming and the wind picked up, and I walked outside and you could just see a yellow cloud of pollen moving across the apartment complex. And I went, oh, that sucks.
Run! It's like a horror movie.
Run away!
People with allergies. Well, so when I go to Oregon, you have a couple routes you can take to get to Portland and that general area and the part of the coast we were going to. And like one of that is along the Columbia River Gorge, which is absolutely beautiful.
I bet.
When it's not on fire. I have driven through that gorge when it was on fire, which is quite freaky, actually. Well, they just leave that interstate open. You're like, okay. Wow. But it's up above you or whatever. And I'm like, okay, great. So you just drive right on through there. I'm sure it gets shut down at a certain points, but so far I've driven through there multiple times during fires. But you can also go right through kind of the center and go through the mountains. And so we did that because I had family and sisters before, and I wanted to see what sisters looked like. And it was like, you drive through, so you go through desert first, which I think people don't associate with Oregon.
No, not at all.
Is. And so, like, here's the super brown part of Oregon, and then you hit the mountains. And boy, allergies instantly. Because it's just pine trees everywhere. I feel like it carries better on humid air or something. I don't know. But, yeah. And then we drive down, and you go, foomp, and you go into Salem and all that good stuff, and then allergies are gone again.
Huh.
Yeah. Fascinating. Because the coast's not really like pine trees. It's tree trees and ferns and, all that magical shit. So we don't get here.
Ferns and all that magical shit.
All that magical shit. It's so fucking green on the Oregon coast. Until you've been there, no idea. It's so great. But then also you get to see the clear cutting. They leave like a layer of trees, and then you can see clear cutting behind it. It's the dumb. I'm like, that one layer of trees you guys thought was sufficient to hide the clear cutting you did.
Yeah, that works.
Just take the fucking all of the trees. Just take them all and replant or something.
The decorative fringe.
Right? For such an area known for like greenery and trees and stuff, they're mad dumb about lumber, but lumber is massive in Oregon. So that's why it was especially horrifying to live there after the, what is it, Final Destination 2 came out.
With the logging truck?
Yes. Do you know how many times I was behind logging trucks?
Yes. Only because upstate New York was also a big logging.
That makes sense. You're just like, fuck no. Oh, it's turning off. Oh, look, there's another logging truck in front of it going somewhere else.
Look, there's one in front of me. There's one behind me. There's one passing me. That one, the driver seems to be throwing beer cans at the window.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. My grandpa worked at a sawmill or, lumber mill for a while. And that was like, there was a whole thing that my mom was young and she would drive back because he was exhausted because he had multiple jobs.
Right.
And so he'd just sleep, or then she'd drive him back when she was not yet 16. But that was really common in rural Oregon at the time.
I think it is everywhere.
And I think rural everywhere. Yeah. But but there was a story where the car started going backwards, like something with the clutch or something. And they have that water, you've seen it in movies, water with the logs on it. Mm-hmm. If you fall under there, it's like falling under ice.
Oh, yeah, because you're
not getting back up.
You can't move the trees to get back up.
Yeah, that car rolled backwards right toward that thing.
Oh,
there was
Jesus.
A whole freaky experience with near death.
Yes.
Right there. One time.
Oh, my God.
So, yeah, that would have been a story in itself, really.
But you would not be here to tell it.
That's correct. There are a lot of reasons I could almost this close to not being here to tell a story. But, yeah. I don't have anything else going on. Actually, I have tons of things going on, but I'm like, what am I willing to talk about?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I have a list of things to talk to you about after we're done recording. But not all of it I want to share with the world.
I guess I'll start because it's pretty long. I tried to pare it down and I was like, everything needed background. And the thing is, let's just say I summed up decades of politics involving American indigenous history in this story to try and tell it, because it was really important that there also be, that the scene be set for the thing that happened.
Well, and you could do a 5-part lecture series and not cover it all.
Right.
So, yes, I trust your
we're talking
abilities.
Basically, a people who were at war, even though it's never been called that. It was its own kind of civil war happening. So, all right. We're going to be talking about Leonard Peltier, which I have been saying Peltier for the longest time. And if I slipped during this, mad apologies, but that's how I thought it was pronounced because it looked French to me and still might be, and it got changed. So who knows? All right. On January 19th, 2025, which feels like, I don't know, a year ago at this point.
But was only really a minute ago.
Oh, God. Time is moving so slow right now. Leonard Peltier received a commuting of his 2 life sentences from Joe Biden as one of the ex-president's final acts. Peltier's representatives and those fighting for his freedom for decades had contacted every departing president with a request for a pardon since at least George W. Bush. Wow. All of whom refused to issue a pardon. That's Obama. That's Trump.
That's fucking everybody.
That's Biden before. For Indian country, this commutation was fantastic news, celebrated across the country and even around the globe. He had a ton of supporters. It's insane. On the flip side, FBI agents absolutely shat their pants with rage. The FBI director, Ray, he has been everywhere. They actively fought every time he came up for appeal. They went to the press. This man is public enemy number 1 to them. While natives universally seem to know who Peltier is, I imagine a lot of other folks don't. I shared that he was free, and I thought very few people had any reaction to that. So because of that, I thought, let's talk about him today. But also AIM, which is the American Indian Movement, the Indian Termination Policy of the 40s to the 60s. That's what it was called. Well, it was a series of policies we'll discuss. And a woman named Anna May, or Annie May Aquash. History time! Okay. Leonard Peltier was born September 12th, 1944. Ugh, what a year. I was like, ooh. On the Turtle Mountain Indian Reservation in North Dakota, an enrolled member of the Turtle Mountain Chippewa, he has Lakota, Dakota, and Anishinaabe ancestry. His parents got divorced when he was 4, and he and his 12 siblings were split out among family. Oh, yeah.
Damn, that's a big-ass family.
Yeah, with him going to one set of grandparents with his sister Betty Ann. When he was 8, his grandfather died, and within a year, his grandmother went to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, never a good idea,
no,
for help, as she was struggling to survive and raise the 2 of them, plus his cousin who lived there too. Sadly, at that time, letting the BIA know you had children was an excellent way to have them ripped away from you. And that's exactly what happened. Mm-hmm. Though his grandma knew enough that they tried to keep watch for the nicer, quieter cars of non-Indians. Now, what does that mean? That means if it was a car that one of the few cars that the Indians around there had, you would hear that fucker coming. Okay? That was, like, just go watch the oh God, smoke signals. Just go watch that. One of the cars in smoke signals only drives in reverse.
I had forgotten that. Yeah. I've seen the movie. Yeah. I saw it in the theater.
Yeah, I watched a scene recently that was like, they applied it to current politics, and then they started driving way backwards, and I was like, oh shit, I forgot about that. That's great. So anyway, but non-Indian cars, government cars.
Yes.
Quiet for the day. We'll say.
Yes.
They were nothing compared to the quiet cars of today. But one day, Leonard made the mistake of not hiding. And a man showed up in his shiny government car and forced his grandma to pack up the children to send them to Wahpeton Indian School. Oh. One of the many notorious Indian boarding schools in the nation. So he was a product of those fucking boarding schools.
Which all sucked ass, didn't they?
Yeah. Yep. Well, because the people running them didn't consider them human.
Yeah.
They were subhuman, like anybody else who has non-bright white skin, I guess. I don't know. They were taken to a parking lot full of buses, and children were forced onto the buses and driven to the school. There were people there to ensure that no parents could do anything to take their kids. The first thing they did was shave their hair off. Mm-hmm. Not cut it, shave it. He received a full buzz cut. They were then forced to strip and move into a big shower room where they were made to scrub until no dead skin came off when tested. If upon being covered in certain areas with Vaseline, any dry skin flakes came off, they were beaten on bare skin with a thick ruler and forced back into the shower. Once no dry skin showed itself, they were covered in DDT to remove lice and other bugs. Next, they forced the older kids to scrub the younger kids in the shower, beating the older kids if the little ones had any dry skin come off. Same deal. The second time around, after a failed skin test, they were given hard bristled brushes to scrub the children, like the kind you scrub the floors with.
What was the deal with the dry skin?
Yeah, I don't know. It was so this was directly from something he sent in to Native News Online in 2022. Describing his experience, but they would put Vaseline like elbows and other places where you might be more apt to have that dry skin.
Right.
And then if they would take their fingers and they would pull off the Vaseline and look for any like dry skin in it.
Why? I believe it.
I have no bloody idea. Like, did that equal filth? It's just your skin.
They couldn't have passed that test. The people administering the test could not have passed it. I'm like, what? It doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah. Like, he described feeling really guilty because he made the child he was scrubbing with that brush bleed.
Well, I bet, you can't be scrubbed with a wire brush and not bleed.
Mm-hmm. The BIA ran the school, which was not located on a reservation. These often weren't.
Right. Of course.
And they showed their disgust constantly through the treatment of the children who were beaten and just just scowled at, treated like they were filthy. They just felt they were dirty animals. Like, that's how they treated them. The school, which had opened in 1908 after being established 4 years earlier, was repeatedly reported for things like harsh discipline and starvation of the children. While the school, and here's the thing, I could have sat there and listed the reports and how long it took them to do anything about them. It was decades. That school was open. It is open now. Still, but it is now Indian run. But we're talking like to the 80s. Like, we're talking people don't understand how recently these boarding schools were still being run by white folks who were abusing these children.
And a lot of them were run by churches.
Yep. A lot of them. So the school it's Indigenous owned. It serves 4th to 8th graders. They've actually had their own complaints about stuff. And I read a whole article about that and decided you guys didn't need to hear it. No bodies have actually been discovered on it. And people recall like 2022 and thereabouts, they were actually doing those searches. But Peltier and others reported hearing of children who had committed suicide and were buried in unmarked graves on the property. There was a room in the basement they called a prison, where kids were stuck, and he doesn't know what happened. He didn't end up in that room, but he did see it because he was asked to move a chair down there. So they would just hear sounds all night, and they thought they were being haunted. I suspect there were children being, they were real sounds. They weren't ghosts.
Yeah.
He was only there until the age of 12 when he was switched to a higher school. He went there until 9th grade before moving in with his dad and eventually getting his GED. In his 20s, he moved to Seattle and took manual labor jobs, including welding and construction, and eventually became a partial owner of an auto shop where they created a halfway house in the upstairs area of the shop for natives trying to reenter society after addiction issues or prison time. But unfortunately, financially, it was too much of a drain on the auto shop and they couldn't keep it going.
That's too bad.
It was around this time he met Dennis Banks, one of the founders of the American Indian Movement, AIM from here on out. AIM had been founded in Minneapolis in 1968, initially to address police brutality against natives, discrimination, and other systemic issues faced by urban Indians. But it soon evolved to address wider issues like treaty rights, education, and preservation of culture because they were being actively assaulted. Much of this was due to the Indian Termination Policy, a series of policies in the U.S. that started in the 40s. During this time, the thought process was that if they terminated the native culture and sent Indians to cities to get off the reservations, they could make them what they considered civilized citizens of the U.S. and terminate their sovereignty. What they ultimately wanted was to completely eliminate tribes and their culture. Now, obviously, this has been going on for decades.
Yes.
And that it was happening before that, it was happening after, but this was under this set of policies. And this was a major escalation where there'd been some calm between forcibly relocating them and all of that. During this time, the U.S. government didn't recognize sovereignty, trusteeship, or the exclusion of state law having any say over tribal citizens. Before, it was federal, and then they had their sovereignty. So they had no problem trespassing on Indian land and attempting to arrest or control individuals there. Us Coloradans may remember Senator Ben Nighthorse Campbell.
Yep.
I remember being so excited. Like, I knew nothing about politics at the time, right? I was pretty young, but he was a Northern Cheyenne enrolled native senator back in the day.
Rode a motorcycle.
Uh-huh.
That's what sticks out
he
in my
always
mind.
seems so cool to me. Now, listen, I have not gone back and looked at his politics, so I can't say anything about that, but
I don't remember anything about his politics.
Right? To me, I was just like, look, Indian in power. But he summed this all up this way. Quote, if you can't change them, absorb them until they simply disappear into the mainstream culture. Anybody watch The Board?
Yeah.
In Washington's infinite wisdom, it was decided that tribes should no longer be tribes, never mind that they had been tribes for thousands of years. In the 10-year span between 1940 and 1950, the U.S. government passed 6 laws that in various ways stripped rights from tribes. In 1949, the Hoover Commission, which was an executive branch body created by Harry S. Truman to look at the federal government and recommend what they called administrative changes, in quotes. Does this sound familiar? Recommended integration and assimilation for natives. A 1952 House report called for termination and called it, quote, cost-effective and benign in its effects. House Concurrent Resolution 108 in 1953 was a federal policy of termination on a one-by-one basis of tribes that ended the federal relationship, which meant these chosen nations lost their BIA federal support like medical care, utilities, police and fire, education, etc. From 53 to 64, they booted over 100 tribes, which was over 12,000 tribal citizens, equaling 3% of the population. They also stole about 2.5 million acres of land trusts during that time and sold them to non-natives, stripping their protections. The tribes could raise some money, challenge these fines in court, but this was decades long that it was happening, and most couldn't, resulting in thousands of citizens suddenly being forced into urban areas with no resources, creating a new kind of poverty and alienation beyond that already known on the reservations, also causing a lot of clashes with police, for example, racial profiling, all of this stuff, as well as a loss of cultural touch points, causing elements of culture to be destroyed and the abandonment of tribal languages. The Public Law 959 Indian Relocation Act of 1956 was one that aided, quotes, in relocating natives to urban centers, drawing almost 70% of native citizens away from their reservations, a displacement that did widespread damage and put natives in peril. And again, ripped more of their culture away.
Ugh.
It wasn't until 1968 that a president, Lyndon B. Johnson, came along and tried to end the termination policies. Nixon actually also tried to work on taking it out, surprisingly. It would not be until 1988, though, where H.R. 108 would finally be officially ended, but the damage had been committed over decades and there was no easy fix. Indian country suffers from the ripples still caused by this time, as well as the ongoing wrongs committed against them in the decades since. It hasn't stopped. Nobody's paying attention to what's being done to, do they understand all the federal stuff being pulled right now? How much of that is Indian stuff? Yeah. Back to AIM. Created in 1968, they used methods started by civil rights and anti-war activists by skipping lobbying and trying to speak to U.S. citizens directly. To do this, they'd put on these big events to draw attention of the press, then use the press to talk directly to the citizens. And it did work really well at that time. Some of their events included the seizing of a Mayflower replica on Thanksgiving in 1970 when the 350th anniversary of the arrival of the Pilgrims was being celebrated. The 1971 occupation of Mount Rushmore, which, to be really abundantly perfectly clear here, had been their fucking land via the Treaty of Fort Laramie until gold was discovered 6 years after the treaty signing. Which is why I will never go to Mount Rushmore. The 19-month occupation of Alcatraz, which I think is the one people have heard of the most, through 1971. Now, I think that I'd forgotten it was 19 months. They had control of it.
I did not remember it was that long either.
And the 1972 Trail of Broken Treaties mass march to Washington, D.C., where they protested and occupied one of the BIA offices for 6 days. Then in 1973, on February 27th, about 200 Ogallala Lakota individuals and AIM members occupied Wounded Knee, South Dakota on the Pine Ridge Reservation in protest of the dirty tribal president, Richard Wilson, who they had attempted to impeach and failed, and of the breaking of treaties with the U.S. government. They demanded treaty negotiations be opened. This occupation lasted for 71 days. Again, February in South Dakota.
Ugh.
There had been schisms forming on Pine Ridge between more urban Indians, mixed Indians, and the traditionalists who had stayed behind to maintain the culture. Wilson was mixed. He was not 100% pure Native American, and he had become an autocrat as a leader, saving opportunities and resources that were already limited for his friends and family.
Yeah, we've never seen anyone in power do that.
No. There were also accusations of rigged elections to keep him in power, and he had formed a militia called the Guardians of the Ogallala Nation, or Goons, often called the Goon Squad by locals.
Nice.
And they were committing violent acts on reservation citizens. The response to Wounded Knee included the FBI, goons, U.S. Marshals, National Guard members, and other local law enforcement, who used roadblocks and military-grade items like grenade launchers, armored personnel carriers, and machine guns. There was even a sniper in a chopper. 30 days in, they cut off all electricity and water, as well as food supplies, and tried to starve them out. However, they were dipshits. In a land that wasn't theirs, that they didn't know, and other tribal citizens gathering on the Rosebud Reservation were able to sneak past the roadblocks to get in some food, medical supplies, and water. They had a whole underground railroad happening there.
Well, yeah. I mean, the people... Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So it was extremely cold, though, so having no utilities was a problem. Both sides say that shots were exchanged throughout the occupation. Like, there'd be some huge volley of shots. They'd all be shooting. Then it would calm down. Then it would happen again. But there was a relatively low death toll from it, considering... I was like, what? Are they all stormtroopers?
Yes, apparently. Or there was much less exchange than they said there was.
Right. One U.S. Marshal, Lloyd Grimm, was the first to be shot. He ended up paralyzed from the waist down. The first death was a mixed Apache and Cherokee man from North Carolina, so that would be the Eastern Band. Frank Clearwater, who was there with his pregnant wife. He was resting in a church when a violent shootout began and was shot in the head where he lay. Like, he wasn't even part of, as far as I could tell, part of the shooting at that time. He was chilling. An Oglala man named Buddy Lamont was shot through the heart by a sniper during another shootout. He was later buried at Wounded Knee at his request near the trench where the 300 individuals killed during the original Wounded Knee massacre as they did the ghost dance were buried. Women, children, men, the elderly, everybody. The final direct casualty of the occupation was Ray Robinson. And I noticed this was skipped in a lot of articles about this. And a black civil rights activist who had traveled there to support the movement. He disappeared and was never seen again. It's believed that AIM members may have thought he was a spy sent in against them because this was a common tactic, as they'd attempted to send in these other spies pretending to be supporters, and that he was killed during a possible altercation related to that. His body has never been recovered. There's no official finding. So I think it's important that that gets mentioned.
Yeah.
An agreement was reached on May 5th to disarm and meet to reenact the Treaty of Fort Laramie, and the occupation ended 3 days later. After this occupation, things escalated. I will say that it was ended because the elders asked for it after the local man was killed, because he was known by everybody and well-liked, and they were grieving. And so the elders were like, that's it. Youngins. Enough of this shit. That's why it ended. So after this occupation, things escalated for those left behind with retribution by Wilson and his goons constantly. It was reported that, quote, the murder rate between March 1st, 1983 and March 1st, 1976 averaged 56.7 per 100,000 per annum, which was more than double the 1974 rate of 20.2 per 100,000 in Detroit, then considered the murder capital of the U.S. It's thought that Wilson offed more than 60 of his detractors.
Oh my God.
So, why did I drag in all this history, right? It's important to know the climate at the time on Pine Ridge, because I feel like things, if you look at it from like today, everything that happened seems extreme, right? But understand that they were warring among themselves. Because they were fighting the U.S. government. Things were shitty. Pine Ridge is still one of the poorest regions in this country right now. There are still people without utilities in Pine Ridge. There are people without cars who cannot get to jobs, who live in the middle of nowhere. This is not what you think of as cities. So that was the climate. People were being offed. They were being disappeared. Nobody knew where they were going. Bodies were turning up. They didn't know who was doing it. So this was happening. That's what was going on June 26, 1975, when two FBI agents, Ronald Williams and Jack Kohler, drove onto Pine Ridge to track down a man named Jimmy Eagle, who had allegedly assaulted two ranch hands and stolen a pair of cowboy boots. So this escalation occurred over that.
Wait, federal agents were called in.
Yeah, FBI agents, because it was all federal. BIA is federal. All of that. FBI agents were, if anybody's ever seen, what is it? Thunder. Val Kilmer's in it. Graham Greene. A lot of amazing actors are in it. It's touching on some of this peripherally. I
mean, that just seems like such an enormous response to send two FBI agents for
stolen cowboy boots and a scrap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And the thing is, This was during a time where they were trying to force then that, no, you guys don't get to take care of your own crimes.
Right.
Federal people are going to trespass on your land. So they were supposedly, this is what went out on the radios, looking for a red pickup truck. What they followed instead was an orange and white Chevy Suburban carryall, is what it was called. So it had a white top. Inside the Chevy were Leonard Peltier, Norman Charles, and Joseph Stuntz. These were unmarked cars. There were 2 cars, and suddenly these 2 cars are following this car full of people who were in AIM on the reservation, and that's all they knew. They were being followed. There were people killing people. There was retribution occurring. So they pulled over off the road on this property that they'd been staying on. They created kind of a compound on this farm, and a shootout started. About 40 AIM members joined from the nearby compound. The agents called into dispatch to ask for reinforcements. Their next call was to say they'd been shot and injured. By the time BIA agents arrived, the 2 men were dead.
Ooh.
With over 125 bullet holes in their vehicles. It was determined that they had shot a total of 5 shots in return. They had been finished off with a shot to the head each, execution style, is the claim.
Okay.
After they were both already injured with gunshots before, and then somebody finished them off. The shootout continued with the BIA agents and other law enforcement officers, numbering over 150. Joseph Stuntz was shot in the head and killed by a sniper bullet. No investigation was ever done. His killer was never revealed. Nothing was done about that death. 3 men were arrested for the agents' deaths: Robert Robideau, Dino Butler, and of course, Leonard Peltier. Robideau and Butler would be found innocent by reason of self-defense, but Peltier's case went all the way. He had escaped after the shootout and fled to Canada. By the way, just a little side here. Marlon Brando was a huge supporter of AIM, clearly from what he did at the Oscars, which was right after all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And Peltier escaped in an RV provided by him. I thought that was a fun little fact. He was putting his money where his mouth was in supporting the Native Americans. So he had escaped after that shootout and fled to Canada. And there's a whole thing here that I skipped, but he was in an RV with a bunch of other people escaping. And he had bought a station wagon. Some people went in that. Everybody split.
Right.
And set out to different places. And the RV actually got pulled over, and Peltier made his escape, and several people in the RV were arrested. And then ultimately let go. But he was arrested in Canada on February 6, 1976 by a Mountie in Alberta, having been added to the FBI 10 most wanted fugitive list. You, of course, don't kill an FBI agent without being added to that. Extradition paperwork was sent to Canada in December 1976. The Solicitor General later would say included false information to get that extradition. Yeah. One of these items of false information was an affidavit from Myrtle Pourbear saying she was dating Peltier and had watched him kill the agents. She later, when it was safe for her to do so, recanted and said she had been coerced by FBI agents to write the affidavit. They didn't even know each other. Not only had they not dated, they didn't even know each other. Physical evidence showed that the 2 agents had been killed using an AR-15, which was the weapon used by Peltier at the time. Though it would later be revealed that there were more individuals with AR-15s in that area at that time, but Agent Kohler's handgun was found in the RV Peltier was believed to have fled in, along with Peltier's thumbprint. During his trial, photos of the murdered agents were shown to the court and jury, as were their autopsy photos. In other words, creating a bias. Those were not shown at the other 2 trials. FBI agents also changed their own confirmed statements, which had gone out over the radio, from saying they were looking for a red pickup truck, now stating in court that they had been specifically looking for an orange and white SUV, like the one Peltier was driving. Contradicting their own previous reports, they'd even confirmed after the shootout and everything they were looking for a red pickup. Also, none of the other cartridge cases outside of the AR-15 ones were admitted as evidence. During appeals, when the other casings came up, it was claimed that these must have been used in the second shootout with the BIA agents and had nothing to do with the Peltier shooting at the 2 FBI agents.
you have basically a killing ground. Mm-hmm. How the hell can you say, well, this shell has obviously been here for 20 minutes and this one has been here for 2 hours?
They were like, it's the location of them.
No.
An expert brought in during the appeals testified that not all the cartridges linked to the crime came from the same gun due to an evaluation of the firing pin then. It was also determined that over 140,000 pages of the investigation were withheld from his trial. Peltier denied having killed the agents. At first, he gave several alibis that showed him not being present. They were lies. But he did eventually admit years later that he was there and fired shots, but that he had not been the one to put in those final kill shots, and he did not know who it was. He has continued to deny that for, 30 years, sticking to his final story. He was convicted and sentenced in 1977 to 2 life sentences, 1 for each agent. Just to be clear here, in the 70s, there were serial killers getting off with lighter sentences than this.
Yes.
In 1979, he escaped from Lompoc, which I don't remember hearing that he'd escaped. But caught in his hiding place 3 days later after a farmer turned him in because he'd gone in and gotten some food. Peltier's argument has been that he didn't kill the agents, doesn't know who did, and that he is a political prisoner. It should be noted that he was wanted for the alleged attempted murder of an off-duty cop in another state as well, though that doesn't seem to have gone anywhere after his conviction. They dropped it or something. There wasn't really anything else about that. So I'm not saying this was a man who wasn't committing crimes.
Right.
His case drew global attention with many fighting for clemency. They felt he had been railroaded and used as an example because of his presence in AIM, because he was higher up. Those supporting him included Marlon Brando, like already mentioned, Nelson Mandela, Reverend Jesse Jackson, the 14th Dalai Lama, Tenzin Gyatso, Mother Teresa, the UN High Commissioner on Human Rights, European and Belgian Parliament, the International Federation for Human Rights, Amnesty International, the National Lawyers Guild, the American Association of Jurists, Pope Francis, eventually, and more. He has,
holy shit,
like I said, international support of people who think that he was wrong in his case. Whether he committed the murder or not, he was not given a fair trial.
Right.
The officer who arrested him in Canada insists he was extradited illegally and that his trial was unfair. A judge who denied him a new trial, Judge Heaney, has supported his release, saying the FBI had been dishonest and were equally responsible for the shootout. In 2016, James H. Reynolds, who had been part of the prosecution team during the appeals, meaning he was fighting against Peltier, put in writing that justice had not been served with him. He also spoke to the press about it in 2017, and in 2021, he wrote to Biden and said, quote, "The continued incarceration of Mr. Peltier was and is unjust. We were not able to prove that Mr. Peltier personally committed any offense on the Pine Ridge Reservation. Recall there were 40 people shooting back at those agents." Peltier's conviction cannot be discussed without also mentioning Anna Mae Aquash. Now, I actually hadn't heard of her before, and when he was released, I saw calls for justice for Anna Mae. So I looked it up.
I'm not familiar with her either.
She was Micmac Nation, born in Nova Scotia, March 27th, 1945, so only about a year younger than him. She had moved to the U.S. and joined AIM, taking part in both the Trail of Broken Treaties and the Wounded Knee occupation, as well as other events. She was the mom of 2 little girls. Aquash was part of the creation of the Boston Indian Council and the Red Schoolhouse Project, which aimed to create a school for American Indian students living in and around Minneapolis that would be culture-based. So they would go there, but they would be learning their culture as well.
Right.
She wrote a letter to her sister that said, quote, "These white people think this country belongs to them. The whole country changed with only a handful of raggedy-ass pilgrims that came over here in the 1500s. And it can take a handful of raggedy-ass Indians to do the same, and I intend to be one of those raggedy-ass Indians." She disappeared in December 1976, and her body was found February 24th, 1977, on Pine Ridge. At first, the BIA claimed the body was unidentifiable, so they severed her hands and sent them to the FBI for identification, stating she had died of exposure due to intoxication, though there was no alcohol in her system. Furthermore, she was known to avoid all alcohol and drugs, despite the party vibe of the movement in the 70s. Understand, these people in the 70s were not just chilling on the res and not doing any pot. So it was bullshit, and it's still their go-to now. FYI. Finally, after a new investigation was called for, pushed by AIM members, and she was exhumed, the gunshot wound was found at the base of her skull. That's how thorough their fucking autopsy was. They missed a gunshot.
To the back of her head.
Yep. And it was also determined she had been raped before the murder. 2 Native men were convicted of her murder in 2004, Arlo Looking Cloud, in 2010, John Graham. But her family and some other tribal citizens feel her murder was ordered by Peltier and other high members of AIM because they felt she was an FBI informant. Again, a big thing. It would later turn out that this accusation came from an actual FBI informant, Douglas Durham, who created a smear campaign against her after she was one of the people originally suspicious of him. He was, in fact, an informant, and a white one. He dyed his hair black and wore contact lenses to pretend to be indigenous. He had so successfully penetrated AIM that he had been appointed the head of security.
Oh, my God.
Aquash had traveled with Peltier while he was evading officials after the double murder. She was in that RV. And another woman who was there came forward after her death to say that Peltier had confessed to them that he had killed the agents. Another reason it's thought she was killed. Because with them already suspecting her specifically of being a plant. Because I was like, well, he didn't have the other people killed who were in the RV. Yeah, but they didn't think they were informants. She was actually in the RV. So she went to prison for a short time after that RV got pulled over, like the other people. Well, jail, not prison.
Right.
And then her being released early from jail was just one more nail in her coffin. They were like, oh, yeah, they are letting her out. And I was like, was it before the others? I couldn't find that. Maybe she got released before the others, and that really just cemented for them that she was an informant. Because of this murder, there are also those in Indian country who are not happy about Peltier's release and who want justice for Anime Aquash.
Okay.
I will say that their voices are drowned out. It can never be said definitively whether Peltier killed the agents or had a hand in Aquash's death. The primary argument is that he did not get a fair trial, something we're supposed to be guaranteed in the U.S., at least for now. The fact that several people involved in his arrest, extradition, and prosecution also feel that the extradition and trial were unjust is what catches my attention on this.
Yeah.
It has been stated that there was no real evidence that the FBI utilized disinformation and coercion in their case. There were actually multiple other witnesses later that said they were coerced and they'd had to lie. They were teenagers. So the FBI took in these teenagers and forced them. And that the conviction was more along racial lines and the desire to squash AIM and make an example. I'll leave that up to others to decide. I'm not going to say whether I think he did the killing or not, because that's not really the question at hand.
Right.
Ultimately, he was not pardoned. To be clear, being commuted, that was given for his health. He's still under house arrest back home. And it's just so that he can go there to die, basically. This is not a pardon. Sources: Wikipedia, Native News Online, Institute of Native American Studies, aimmovement.org, history.com, NPR, usmarshals.gov, New York Times, The Guardian, NBC News, aljazeera.com, freeleonard.org, Oregon Live, and FBI.gov. I will say it is fascinating reading versions of it in the news, versions of it on the Native American sites, and versions of it on US Marshals and FBI.gov. The FBI.gov one reads so mad. Like, they're just like, we're being accused of being liars, and here's all the information. And I was just like, okay, whatever. And you guys fucking lied, no matter what. They fucking lied. And I consider it trespassing anyway, but whatever. The US Marshals.gov one tried to take, like, it was all about the heroism of the marshals that were involved. They had one picture on that page, and it was a group of U.S. Marshals standing there at Wounded Knee, raising the American flag after defeating the Indians, who actually were just like, all right, we'll go ahead and talk to you because our friend is dead. And it just like a victorious, but they also were like, it's unfortunate that some Indians died, was exactly like the wording on there. Some Indians. So I was just like,
my God.
Wow. Okay. That is the story of Leonard Peltier and the briefest summary I think could possibly have been made of all the stuff that I read last night. All the laws and acts and HR 10 blah blahs. And
so how old is he now? I'm
77, is it?
He was born in 44?
44. Yeah. What's that? Wait. What's that?
80. He'll be 81 this year.
So, yeah, then 77 was one of his last interviews that I read that stuck in my head.
That's a big friggin' chunk of your life to be in prison.
And that was the problem that people had with it, too, is they were like, he's served his time. You know, like, again, serial killers have gotten out of prison before this.
Yeah, what's the woman? I can't ever remember her name.
The one.
Smart was her last name, maybe?
Well, that Elizabeth Smart is the one who was kidnapped, so not who you're thinking
that's
of.
Not
the one
her.
You did a story on, right?
Yeah, and they think she colluded with these two.
Pamela?
Yeah, that sounds right. But they think she colluded with these two high school students to kill her husband.
And she's still there.
Regardless of whether or not she did that, she did not kill her husband, and she's still in fucking prison for it.
Right? It's interesting who they choose to make an example of, and you can see clear bigotry, and
That's just astounding to me.
And it's just like, of course, there are black activists who are still in prison for stuff that's much lesser than the horrific crimes that white men have committed.
Well, and people used to get really harsh penalties for possessions of a small amount of marijuana. And they would get long sentences. And
the fact that they're still in prison when it's legalized, like in places where it's legalized, is insane. Like,
that is crazy.
I know your crime is grandfathered in as a crime, even though it's not a crime.
Even though it's no longer a crime.
And it was never a big enough crime that they should have been in prison anyway. Because all you've done now when you stick them in prison is create a new kind of criminal. Because now they're savvier. They've heard everybody's stories. And
they've learned new skills.
And fuck it. Their lives are gone once they're in prison. So even if they get out, they might go on to do bigger and better things. Because why the fuck not? When you have had your freedom taken away from you, it changes you. And it also changes your willingness to give a shit about being outside.
Well, and here's a very small example that a lot of people wouldn't think of. But if you're a woman and you've been in jail, not even talking prison, and you've been in jail, you can never volunteer at your kid's school. It doesn't matter if you clean up your act. They're going to run a background check and find that, and they can exclude you from all kinds of things.
Yep. There's a lot of impacts that people don't think about.
And people don't.
Because when I went to volunteer at my kids' school, I had to go in and be fingerprinted and be background checked, which is good. I'm not saying that is not good. Yes. But there's no discernment practiced on, well, what was the crime that had you there? You know, like, why were you at jail for 2 days? I have a friend who walked in on her boyfriend cheating on her, walked outside and keyed his truck. And he called and had her arrested.
Oh, fucker.
So she was put in jail for several days. And so that would make her somebody who keyed a car unable to volunteer at her kids'
I
school.
will say it has come to my attention, and I'm not going to say how. Maybe I'll say later to you, but I'm not going to say it on the air, that if someone you know just hasn't paid their taxes in years, there's an online form where you can report them.
Interesting.
That's all it takes. And I'm not sure, I don't think you have to say who you are.
What's scary, there are several online forums to report several things now, like in the news, of course, reporting, there's a hotline for schools, things that happen in schools that are supporting, trans youth and stuff like that. They can report whatever they want about that. It's funny that largely that tends to be a conservative thing there, where they're like, report them for doing, because that was happening with the abortion stuff.
Yep.
In Texas, as there were calls, all right, well, we're going to create this website. And if you know a woman who's had an abortion, report her.
Yes. Texas, the new measles capital.
Yeah. I have to get my teeters checked, but I actually had German measles as a kid. So a lot of us did.
I just read an article today that said Colorado could easily be next.
I mean, we're right here. We're right next to them almost.
Also because our vaccination rate is low.
Yes, there's a lot of homeschoolers in Colorado because there are a lot of Christians also that want to, homeschool for that reason. And also a lot of anti-vaxxers. Yeah.
Well, I have been reading, and I am not a doctor, and I've never played one on TV, so I'm not giving anyone medical advice. If you're thinking about this, you should talk to your own doctor. Having said that, I have been reading that if you wanted to get a new MMR, measles, mumps, rubella, there's no harm in it. If you, as an adult, if you've had, like, I'm going to ask my doctor, should I get one? Joe, because of when he was born, I don't think ever had the shot. He's right on the cusp of, and I'm sure I probably did have it. I don't remember, but I'm like, if taking 2 seconds to get a shot can help me prevent getting it, because it also sucks hard when you're adult to have these diseases.
It is worse for adults. Measles is like chicken pox.
Yes. And, but there are no side effects.
No.
Or very few. I
recommended my husband get it because, first of all, they had like ranges of when you got vaccinated or if you did. But his care is he's in that range anywhere they're like, check with your doctor.
Yes.
But his care was so inconsistent as a child. There's a chance he never got that vaccination to begin with. And my problem is I actually got it from a bad batch of vaccines. Through the military. Well, that's where we were at the time. So I ended up getting German measles. And the thing is that people don't realize that it's worse than, it's not just chicken pox. It's not, and that even can be totally, it can be very severe. It can cause, but measles is worse. So it's a good idea for people to just check with their doctors. The problem I'm seeing is people coming back and their doctors, depending on how much they've researched it or know about it, are saying that, oh, no, you don't need to do anything with it. Not offering to test teeters, not offering any of that.
A friend of ours got tested.
Yeah.
Did you see that she posted?
Yeah.
And she was getting the shot because I haven't talked to her in a long time, so I didn't feel I could reach out and go, where are you going? What for? What are you doing? Is it going to be fun? Is it work? What are you doing? So, yeah, I did not.
Yeah.
Whereas if you posted it, that you were going, I would totally be all over.
Hey,
where are you going?
Tell me more.
What are you doing? So there was no definitive yes he did it or no he didn't do it.
No, and I don't think there ever will be. Now there are a handful of people who have said he confessed to me, and who knows,
right?
Whether he did or not, whether he was doing a fake brag because he was a young man. He wasn't that young. I think he was like around 30 when he was around 30 when he got arrested. But
that's younger now than it used to be.
Right.
But interestingly enough, the case I'm going to talk about, there's no certainty of whether the person who's serving
we're just leaving everybody with questions.
Yes, we're just
That's our goal.
Welcome to life. So I start out typing this, and I type these up in Comic Sans because I like it. But I want to know why. I use it on first drafts for everything now.
Oh, really?
I do.
Okay.
So what I want to know is why does Comic Sans, why do people hate it so much?
I don't know why they hate it. I like it too. But
I do. It makes me so happy to type first drafts in it now. And it just makes me feel like rebellious and productive at the same time. So if anybody out there knows why people hate Comic Sans, please let us know.
Maybe it got abused because people liked it too much and it was one of those fatigue things.
Maybe, but really? I bet Patrick knows.
Okay.
Or Laura. I'm going to see Laura this week. I'll ask her. Why do people hate comic? I'm going to be with a bunch of writers, I will ask them how they feel about Comic Sans and why.
Why are you going to be with a bunch of writers?
Because Left Coast Crime is up in Denver, and I'll be helping at the bookstore.
Yeah, there's a bunch of people going to be there. I boo-booed and forgot and thought it was a different year, so I'm out.
Oh, you didn't?
I thought it was next year.
I'm so sorry.
So now I told Jeffrey I'm going to have such FMO, like FOMO, FOMO. And while everybody's there, I'm probably just going to say fuck you to everybody and skip social media.
Okay. I mean, I'll be in the bookstore, so I won't be doing all the fun stuff, but...
Yeah.
But you know me. If I don't get fun stuff, I make fun stuff. And I'll be working with Laura and Tori. And Tori is a fucking stitch. She is hilarious. Anyhow, the crime I want to talk about today takes place in 1999. So I think we can all agree 1999 was about 10 minutes ago.
Was it? A lot has happened
yes,
since 1999.
So here's some things, because I have a hazy memory of everything. Let's be honest, everything. So I was like, what things happened in 1999? So obviously the year 2K threat was hanging over everybody's head. So we all know about that. What I had forgotten was that the Columbine High School massacre happened that year, which shocked everybody. Falun Gong, which we have discussed on this podcast before, was banned in the People's Republic of China. We are not going to mention the dance.
No, don't do it.
No.
It's
no,
here right
no.
now, or it's like the marketing is everywhere right now.
It is. Also that year, because I was looking through the whole year, there was a fuck ton of earthquakes. Absolutely horrifically. Lil Nas X was born. Shel Silverstein and Madeline Kahn died. I swear to God, Madeline Kahn has been gone like 5 years. But no, it's 19.
That's okay. I forgot all the people that died this year.
Oh.
And then the Oscars tribute happened. I was like, that was this year. That was in the last year. And like, there were so many. Terry Garr, I was like, what? And then they totally left out Tony Todd. Come on. He is like the granddaddy of horror, man. You can't do that. And they did Gene Hackman, but not little Michelle Trachtenberg, who died at all of what? Was she 39?
Yeah.
Of, I assume,
I didn't realize
adjacent to her liver replacement.
Right. Because Gene Hackman had been dead for about 15 minutes when the
Right,
Oscars
and the
aired.
excuse they gave for Trachtenberg, who died, a day or two before him, was that, well, it was too close. Now, he wasn't in the slideshow, but Morgan Freeman got up and talked to him, but fuck the little girl that died so early. But anyway, the Hackman thing is insane. Did you see the most recent update?
Yes, I did.
That she had hantavirus, which, by the way, I have such a paranoia about hantavirus because I studied it back in the 90s when there were massive outbreaks on, was it the Navajo reservation? And I actually was writing a story. I was like a big Tony Hillerman reader at the time, and I was writing a story and therefore researching biological weapons because my old theory was they were testing it on like the Navajo reservation. That's why there was such an outbreak there. And then Tony Hillerman came out with something similar, even though it wasn't hantavirus. And I said, fuck all this, because I hadn't learned yet that it's okay. You can, multiple people can write the thing. And I gave it all up after, I must have been on a watch list, because I was getting those books directly from the library about biological warfare and researching it and how to make these, how easy it is to like make anthrax and shit, right? So anyway, I give because our cats bring in mice, right? Sometimes. And sometimes they just slaughter them wholesale. But we have to hunt them down, and like they hide in my daughter's room because she's in the basement. They run downstairs, and I'm so paranoid about hantavirus because you get it from inhaling around mouse droppings. And then fucking Gene Hackman's wife dies of hantavirus. And I was like, see, Jeffrey, it's real. Because I'm always like, wear a mask when you're cleaning out the garage, please.
What's really bizarre is that our friend Becky had said, it sounds like this is what happened. And then when it came out, she was eerily correct.
Well, a lot of people had that same theory, though.
But she was the one that I saw. But yeah, it was horrific in the fact that his caretaker died.
And he was basically roaming around with Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And not knowing what the fuck happened. Because clearly if he'd been in his right mind, he would have called an ambulance or something like that. But then they said he had on sunglasses and shoes where he was found on the ground. Because his heart failed him or whatever. And I assume he hadn't been eating and drinking properly, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So yeah, that was all like... That was insane. That was an insane entry in the beginning of 2025 for somebody that well-known to die basically in this obscure way.
Yes.
And nobody noticed for, 10 days or whatever it was.
At least a week.
Yeah.
If not 10 days.
And of course the poor dog that was
in the
kennel.
House. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that they didn't have... And I have no idea if Gene Hackman had children or not.
He did. And they said they were close, but they hadn't. They were not the ones who noticed their parents were not.
Yeah, I'm like...
A neighbor was.
And you know this. When your parents reach a certain age and a certain stage... It doesn't matter if you talk to them every day, but you have some kind of communication, or someone does.
You see them, or they post on social media, or one of your other siblings talk to them, or whatever.
Somebody texts them.
So that's surprising. Well, but people giving the kid shit online also, I'm just like, really? Leave them alone.
Yeah. Their parent just died horribly.
But then I had my snarky, but I don't...
Yes.
If they're in that condition, I don't know. So who knows what the situation was? It's nobody's business. Who knows what kind of family situation there was?
Yeah.
It's not my business either.
So, all right, where was I?
I know.
Oh, yeah, people who died. Madeline Kahn. Oh, and the movies. And so Fight Club, Notting Hill, and The Matrix all came out that year. Like, they're that old? No. Yeah. I mean, I knew The Matrix was. So which one of those movies did I not see?
Wait, which ones were they? Matrix, Fight... Oh, you didn't see Fight Club.
I did not see Fight Club.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know more about it than I...
It's one of those absorbed by the zeitgeist.
Yes.
Yeah.
The first rule of Fight Club. You don't talk about Fight Club.
Second rule of Fight Club. You
don't talk about Fight Club.
That's right.
So who was it said they were in a fight club and they're like, well, you just broke the number one rule.
Fun fact is that's where the term snowflake originated. So
really?
And it was definitely not a pro-conservative thing. So that's why it's doubly funny that's who they're quoting there when they use their insult, because they don't have an intellectual argument.
Okay. So I'm going to start with a small rant. I know, so unusual for me. A ranty McRant. And I know that I'm not the only person who has noticed this, because I've seen other people talking about it. And I've even seen it parodied in modern media. And I'm trying to remember the example and I can't. You might remember it. So I go into this and a woman was killed. So I want to learn about the murder victim. And if I search very, very hard and I scour the internet, I might find a paragraph or two about the victim.
Mm-hmm. I had to look for stuff on Aquash.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if the victim is a female, I'm likely to find even less. However, the alleged killer or the proven killer in some instances, I can generally find out their genealogy, what his second grade teacher wrote on his report card, who his best friends were, possibly even his shoe size. Because you get all the information, that's what's studied, and it gives very short shrift to the victims. Mm-hmm. But unless they were alleged to be involved in something horrific or salacious, then there are no details about them.
Yeah, with Brandon Tina, for example, I had to really look to find the other people who were killed with him.
Yeah.
And that bothered me because I get it. It's because it was a hate crime and it was committed because of, their hatred for Brandon Tina.
Right.
But it sucked that it was so much work. Like, I gave some background on both of them, but that was what I could find. And that always drives me nuts.
Yes.
I don't know anything about the two FBI agents either. So.
Did you look at them?
And they were 27 and 28, I think. Wow. They were babies.
That's young.
Yeah.
They were noobs.
So
the person I'm talking about is Mabel Chegwin, who was called May. She was born on August 13th, 1941 in Colombia, the country. the Goog wouldn't cough up her obit. I searched high and low and could not ring an obituary. In 1999, I should be able to find a fucking obituary. I can find my father's obituary, and he died in 1973.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I can find it online, not I can go through my personal effects or whatever. Anyway, here's what we do know. She had what looked like an ideal life. Her husband, Dirk, was a well-respected allergist, and she was a nurse. At the time of her death, she was working toward another healthcare degree. That was as specific as they got. They had 3 children together, and at this point in time, they were grown children, and they lived in the very chic Boston suburb of Wellesley, Massachusetts. They had been married for 31 years, and I guess all the weird shit happens when you've been married multiple decades.
I guess so.
Let me tell you, that's when the shit really hits the fan. Or you've both just given up. I don't know.
We just switch our shit up so we don't have to hit all that. You know, next plan, Mexico. We move to Mexico.
There you go. So the husband, Dirk, had been born in Germany but raised in Lebanon. And he spoke at least 4 languages and had graduated. He did his undergraduate degree at Yale. I didn't list all of where he got his medical degrees. Nice, lovely schools. By 1998, he had risen to director of clinical allergy at Brigham and Women's Hospital, one of the best-known hospitals in Boston and one of the nation's top research facilities. And apparently I thought that sentence was really important because I put it in twice.
So nice. I said it twice.
Thank you, editing. So they were a fairly social couple with a decent amount of friends. Some said that May had become insecure about her marriage and was increasingly concerned about her looks. She bought new clothes, she exercised more, and was reportedly considering plastic surgery. Now, being a cynical bitch, I would like to point out, yes, she very well could have been concerned about her marriage. She also could have been seeing someone new. You would see you might. I'm not saying she was. There's absolutely no indication that she was seeing anybody else. I'm just pointing out, if we're going to make assumptions, let's make all of them. So on Halloween morning, 1999, May, who was 58, and her husband, Dirk, who was 59, went for a walk around a lake a half a mile from their house. May had a bad back, so she sat down to rest while Dirk went ahead with their dog. And some people say she was heading back to their car to sit down, and some said she found a place to sit on the path. So I'm not entirely clear, but she stops to rest. He goes on because she has bad back. He's walking the dog. When he came back to the spot where he left her, he found her dead, lying on the path. Dead. Apparently dead was also important. Wow.
Also deceased.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She had been beaten, stabbed in the chest multiple times, and nearly decapitated. So the police were called, and when they were searching the nearby area, they found gloves, a hammer, and a pocket knife in a storm drain not far from her body. All the items were covered in blood. Playing the odds, of course, the police suspected the husband. That's kind of common sense. Also, when they first arrived at the park, Dirk had blood on his jacket, his eyeglasses, and his sleeves, but not on his hands. Now, one would think he could have fallen to the ground to help his wife but it was the fact that he had blood on him, but none on his hands. It's kind of weird. So we have this well-respected doctor, a good neighbor, an upstanding kind of a guy. So nobody, including the people who thought they were closest to him, knew that he had an alter ego named Thomas Young, which was actually a name he took from one of his classmates at Yale. Thomas Young was addicted to porn and sex. He downloaded copious amounts of porn, had enormous phone bills for phone sex calls, and frequently employed sex workers at hotels and in his home office. So I would like to note that if he did have sex workers in his office, someone must have noticed, I would think. I mean, I suppose it could be argued that sex workers also have seasonal allergies, but yeah, you don't have to be completely disrobed to get your allergies treated.
What?
Anyhow. Surprise!
Ooh, I've been doing it wrong.
He spent time with one particular sex worker the weekend before May's murder, and also that same person the day after.
Okay.
So while we both have argued on this podcast that people grieve in their own ways and they respond in their own ways, visiting a sex worker, 24 hours after finding your spouse's dead body seems to stretch the bounds of believability.
Yeah.
Was that grief? It surely does not sound like it.
He was starved for one day.
Yeah.
And he needed to pay somebody to fix that.
The other things the Thomas Young persona did, he set up a shell corporation. He applied for corporate credit cards under that fake name. One source said he often solicited group sex and escorts. And he reportedly got more obsessive about it in the weeks leading up to May's murder. He was somehow spending 4 hours a day on porn sites while maintaining his career.
I'm impressed.
Right? And they didn't have social media.
I can't even watch a movie because typically the movie's on and I'm working and I take in about half of it at this. We used to be able to do everything all at once. My brain now is like, we're doing this thing.
Thus the word dead twice.
Right.
Burt Reynolds was highly distracting.
That was it. I am also distracted by. You still need to go to that hotel in Arizona where there's the Playgirl thing right behind the desk.
Yes.
Love that.
He was also writing prescriptions for Viagra for himself. He had at least 2, but he was keeping the pills.
How much fucking Viagra do you need? When you're doing group sex and sex workers all the time, I guess.
Perhaps he was sharing. We don't know. But he also, a weird thing was he kept the pills in the garage. Not where I keep my medications, but there was speculation that May was close to discovering Dirk's alter ego if she hadn't already. So 4 months after the murder, Dirk was arrested. Police said DNA testing on the hammer and the knife in the park linked Dirk to the murder. His DNA was on the items. Apparently, he also delayed in calling 911 after discovering his wife's body. But, interestingly enough, when he went to court, his 2 daughters and his son, who are all adults, showed up to support him. And they have claimed all along that they believe he was innocent and said he was an excellent and supportive father.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
You could be a deeply flawed human being and still be a good father.
Yes. So while testifying, Dirk said his wife had lost interest in sex, and he admitted to hiring 2 sex workers.
Okay, had he lost interest in sex, or she lost interest, or just didn't want to do it 24/7?
Yeah.
And group sex.
Or maybe if she had any inkling that he was seeing other people, maybe she just didn't want an STI.
Right? Jesus.
Yes. So he admitted to hiring 2 sex workers and to having sex with 2 strangers. I'm not even...
depending on how things were, the sex workers might have been the least likely to have the STIs. And I don't know. Because, testing, they usually do pretty constant testing, but the 2 strangers...
yeah. I'm like, what did you just... never mind. He was tearful when he told jurors that despite that, he loved his wife and had never considered a divorce. It was also noted that he and his wife had purchased large, for that time, life insurance policies just 2 days before she died. Although plenty of the evidence was circumstantial, a jury agreed that Dirk was guilty of first-degree murder after 3 days of deliberation. On June 29th, 2001, Dirk was sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole. Since then, he has maintained his innocence and has never strayed from the story that he loved his wife and he believes her murder was a random thrill kill. So, there's a couple of addendums. And a really odd thing, even though he was in prison for killing his wife, he was still the executor of her estate. And apparently it was fairly sizable. In October of 2001, May's sister petitioned to have Dirk removed from that role. Because of the way Massachusetts law was written, he was allowed to sell her property, invest the proceeds, and distribute the assets all from his cell at the maximum security prison in Shirley. He could also take fees, which he was allowed to set for being the executor of the estate. He reportedly sold the $450,000 family home. And remember, that's like in $2,000. So it's, who knows what it is today. It's the Taj Mahal. He sold the $450,000 family home to his daughter's boyfriend for $1. So I do want to point out the sister who petitioned for this was not a beneficiary of the estate, but said she wanted to protect the assets for her nieces and her nephew. And then if she was ever named any kind of beneficiary, she would give the money to them.
That's nice.
In the interest of being fair, I do want to share something else I learned from an early news article about May's murder. She was killed in October at Morris's Pond. In December, 75-year-old Iris Kennedy was found stabbed at least 29 times at Walpole's Bird Park, which was 22 miles away, where she frequently walked. And in August, Richard Rayinger, an 82-year-old gentleman, died after being beaten at Buckmaster Pond, which was about 13 miles away, where he often went fishing. So I do want to point out, the police did investigate whether these three could be linked.
Yeah, I don't think the beating has anything at least to do with it, but...
The stabbing, Iris Kennedy, 44-year-old Martin Guy was later arrested and convicted of her murder.
Okay.
That seems pretty solid. However, the gentleman who was beaten to death, it remains unsolved.
It's still different, completely different.
Yeah, it's usually you don't
go from stabbing to be like, I'm just going to beat your ass.
You're right. So in early 2020, Dirk came up for parole, still maintaining his innocence. He also acknowledges that he is unlikely to ever be eligible for parole, since part of the requirement is accepting responsibility for your crime.
Yes.
To get parole. And if he declares he didn't commit the crime, he's not going to accept responsibility for it.
Yeah, Peltier could have gotten out on appeal if he'd admitted it.
Yes. And just last year, 2024, Dirk attempted to get a medical parole, which was denied. And neither side released anything about what the medical issue was. So he tried to get a medical parole and could not. His children, I believe, still visit him. One of the daughters said when she was called after her mother had been killed and she showed up at the police station, one of the things she said to her father was, "Did something happen between you and mom?" Mm-hmm. And so the prosecution made a big deal about that. And she was like, "I was in shock. Who knows what I said?" And apparently she's a verbal processor. I can relate. And she was like, I can't even tell you what I said. If you said, questions were coming out of my mouth. I was in shock. I was scared. And my mother had just died. What do you want from me?
Yeah.
So yeah, he is still in jail. Still, he and his children maintain that he didn't do it, even though his DNA was on the murder weapons. He claims, and I have no idea if this has any tiny iota of truth in it or not, that because he and May lived together and slept in the same bed, that his DNA was on her, and that was how his DNA got onto the weapons.
That's a bit of a reach. I mean, on one of them,
yeah, how much DNA could have...
Like, what'd you do, rub on her before she left the house?
Okay, you go sit down. Here, let me rub all over you before you go.
Yeah.
And it was a very weird case. Because, yeah, the fact that it's been so long and he still maintains his innocence.
Yeah, that always, it sounds like he has perhaps sex addiction issues or whatever, but it does really sound like it points to him.
It really does. And that, it would be one thing. Did we talk about the guy he was in the military and his wife was killed. And
Oh, yeah. The hippies did it?
yeah,
I did him. I don't remember his name.
I can't remember. But that's what it made me think of. Except he didn't try to point the finger at anybody. Except to say he believes it's a random thrill kill.
Yeah. If that were a random thrill kill, it would have continued happening.
Yeah, there would have been a ton of others. And like I said, the woman who was stabbed, they caught. Also, the fact that she was nearly decapitated, that doesn't sound like a random, that sounds like a crime of passion. And you generally don't have a crime of passion with someone you don't know.
Yeah. So.
But it's just one of those oddities. That the fact that he had created, it wasn't even the fact that he was a sex addict. Because, fine. But he created a whole second persona and was trying to get credit cards in that name. And
right. He is deeply otherwise suspicious.
Yes.
And was doing stuff. And it does sound like maybe she figured it out.
Yeah.
And maybe confronted him about it or something. Or hinted something. And he thought that she was going to come at him about it. But when people maintain their innocence in prison for X amount of time, it can't be more convincing, but...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, my sources were Wikipedia, my True Crime a Day calendar from 2022. I saved this one. I did. When I ripped the pages off, I'm like, ooh, I might want to come back to that. I have a whole file of them. Famousbirthdays.com, Find a Grave, the LA Times, Seacoast Online, ABC News, Milford Daily News, Cape Cod Times, and CBS News.
Okay.
So, and yes, we've both talked about the fact that often when we're doing our research, we have the TV going and have something on in the background. So yesterday I got a double feature as I was working on this. The first movie was Blazing Saddles, which is hilarious to watch on, I can't remember what channel it was on, but it was not a streaming service, so it was heavily bleeped.
Okay.
Which is really funny in that movie. Because that made me laugh harder than almost anything else. And I forgot how funny the end scene is when they go into the movie set, into the cafeteria. And all the roles that Mel Brooks plays in the movie, they're hilarious.
It's been a long time since I watched Blazing Saddles.
And then and the movie that just came up next after that was Smokey and the Bandit. Oh my God. Prime Burt Reynolds.
It's funny though, as I've gotten older, I feel like I had like a retro crush on Jerry Reed because of his voice.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he carries...
And I recognize his voice now he did songs in other movies and stuff like that. And I'm like, yo!
And here's something I don't get. Why the scriptwriter did this. Jerry Reed carries around his goddamn dog.
This basset hound
this giant basset hound he takes with him. The dog doesn't serve any purpose.
No, but you love him.
Except at one point he's got to get
It's a foil,
going.
so he has somebody to talk to, I feel like.
Yeah.
Because... You've got, the bandit has somebody to talk to, Sally Field, in the car. And there's just some dude in a truck, and to make him interesting, he has to be talking to the dog. I feel like, perhaps.
I guess that, yeah. But it was so funny, because when Sally, so Bert, for anybody who hasn't seen it, which could be a lot of people, they're driving to Texarkana to get Coors beer and drive it back in a certain amount of time. And so Burt Reynolds, for some reason, instead of riding in the truck with Jerry Reed, is driving a little, what is it, a Trans Am? Some kind of muscle car.
Yeah.
So anyway, and at one point, the Sally Field character is in a full wedding gown veil that was a voluminous veil. And she just like leaps into his car and is like, step on it. And so he's like, all right.
Right?
It just drives off.
I mean, who wouldn't? Some dude like, okay.
And so she's, yes. So it's so funny when they start talking because she's like undoing this veil and it's like 7,000 pieces and she keeps just chucking them out the window. And at this point in time, Jerry Reed is behind them in the tractor trailer. And he's like, good buddy, what's going on up there? Because then she pulls the dress up and off. It was a stunt magnificent in her flexibility that she was able to put clothes on
in that small space.
In that small space with the dress still on without exposing anything. Because she could have climbed into the back seat and just done it all back there. But no. She's in the front seat talking about, I can't even remember but she's just, and you
going
see
full Gidget in the front seat.
Yeah, and she's got her leg up on the dashboard at one point. She's taken off her shoes. And he makes some comment about her legs. And I was affronted for her. And she turns to him and she's like, what are you talking about? I have great legs. I'm a professional. And he's like, really? I would think you'd be quicker at getting out of your clothes or something like that. And she's like, I'm a professional dancer. And then you come to find out, I love movies from this era because the plots are so thin. She had been in town to do it. She was in a traveling production of some show and she met this tall, handsome guy and decided I should marry him. Like, okay.
I feel like there's been more fickle reasons for marrying people, amazingly, in the past. Yeah, I remember, because, I watch this movie a lot. I own the DVD and I watch it at least once a year, probably. Because it's just one of those, it's a movie from my childhood, right? It's a comfort watch for me. Like, I watch Best Little Whorehouse in Texas probably at least twice a year. But, yeah. It's so good, though. Anyway, I just watched it recently again. But I didn't retain from childhood why they were on this, right?
Yes.
It's just a caper.
Yeah.
And so I posted about it when I was like, oh, yeah. It was because they needed the shittiest beer on earth.
Yes, ever made.
But posting about it, my aunt posted, and she was like, she lived in Oregon. She grew up in Oregon. And they could get it in California. California was one place this side of the Mississippi that you could get it. And so the college or, like the high school kids would drive down to California, get them some Coors and bring it back up. And I'm like, it's amazing the lengths people went to for fucking Coors.
Yeah. When I lived in Virginia Beach, you could not buy Corona.
Oh, yeah.
But you could in North Carolina. And one of my coworkers lived just over the border in North Carolina. So I would occasionally give him, because I, for a while, dated a guy who really liked Corona. So I'd give him some money and say, would you bring me back some Corona?
Yeah.
What? I mean, how flippin' ridiculous.
Now there's a microbrewery on every corner, at least in Colorado and Oregon there is. So
yes.
There's no shortage of beers that probably have a good chance of being better than
Corona or Coors.
Yes.
I mean, I think bog water would be better than Coors. It's just, it's indelibly printed in my memory because I can't remember if I lived there or if I was visiting, but I was in a Virginia Beach bar with Frida. And this guy says to us, he's trying to impress us, I'm going to buy you ladies the best beer here. To which we replied, okay. And he comes back and he sets down 2 cans of Coors in front of us. Wow. And we looked at each other and we're like, I'm sorry, are you fucking kidding?
I think my upscale beer in my teen years was Killian's Red.
Oh, yes.
That was the upscale beer in quotes there. Otherwise, I was a Miller Genuine Draft person for a while. But
oh, yes. MGD.
Again, we didn't have great options. But the MGD, buddy.
An MGD Light.
Yeah. I was like, give me the Killians. Once I tasted that at a party in a hotel room with coworkers that were way older than me, then I was like, oh, yeah, that's good. I bet if I had it now, I'd be like, what is this?
I haven't had a kid. Do they still make Killians?
I don't know. Because there's so many other options.
Because I remember being somewhere, and it must have been around the time I met Joe or when I moved out here. Because I can't remember where the restaurant was, but he said, what do you have for imports? And the woman is listing their imported beer, which back then was scant. And she listed Killian's, and we both started laughing. And she's like, what? And he goes, Killian's is a U.S. beer.
It was like Irish Red or whatever was the...
Oh, yeah, I drank plenty of Killian's.
Yeah.
Oh. And now I do not drink light beer.
I'm not a big beer person to begin with.
Right.
I keep around some Blue Moon, and then, I like a Shandy.
You do like...
And I like my spicy pumpkin.
Yes, I was going to say, you like the same beer I do.
Yeah.
That one
Yeah. I still have some out there. I dole them out until
Yes.
October, right?
I use them to make spicy banana beer bread. It is so good. No, pumpkin. Spicy pumpkin beer bread.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. since it is a pumpkin beer and all.
Yes.
I'm in it for I love like a icy hot sensation for some reason is something I love. That's why I like ginger beer, like real ginger beer, not the bullshit canned stuff you can get, but Burrowing Owl ginger beer.
Yes.
They ruined me for ginger beer. It's just glorified soda if it's not from there.
Theirs is quite piquant.
But because they're doing it, it's, what's the term for what they're doing? It's like an actual processing. It's how it's processed. It's,
I don't know.
like a SCOBY or whatever. It starts with like sourdough. It has some kind of starter or something. And then, yeah. But anyway, it's different. It's not just soda. But it's so good.
It is very good.
And I have like frozen ginger knuckles in my freezer. And then I'll just take off like a little tiny bit and put it in a fruit smoothie to get that cool burn too. Because I like it. I like that sensation. It's very weird.
It's not. I mean.
But yes, that's why I like, say, a jalapeno margarita and stuff like that. I like the icy hot.
I love a chili beer, but not all of them are good.
Yeah, the only one that I like is the stuff I get.
I like a pumpkin beer and I like a chili beer. This one happens to be both. But a lot of pumpkin beers are terrible and a lot of chili beers are terrible.
Yeah. I only had one other pumpkin beer that I liked, and it was from a place up in Denver. Or no, that was an orange beer I liked.
Ooh.
So never mind.
Oh, I remember
only had
that.
The one. Yeah, the orange beer was really good up there because we had one in Idaho that I liked, and then they didn't carry it around here. And then I tasted that one. I was like, ooh, this is good. And then I went to Oscar Blues or whatever opened down here, and they carried it.
Oh.
But once I got a big thing of it, a growler or whatever, I was over it.
Oh, too much.
Yep,
I get that. So, speaking of flavors, have you tried the new peanut butter and jelly M&Ms?
I didn't know that was out. I had a peanut butter burger at Lebowski's that was fucking amazing, though.
Was it? I've seen it on their menu.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Is it?
I'm actually craving it.
Ooh.
I don't usually crave a burger.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll have to try it. Now that somebody
It's
I know.
messy, though.
Well.
Just know, I was sitting there with because there's just peanut butter and what is it? It has like jalapeno jelly or something like that on it. And that's all. And I was just like, okay, whatever. I just got to eat this.
Yeah, I saw the peanut butter and jelly M&Ms, so I was like, oh, I have to try these. They're okay. They're not bad, but they don't have enough peanut butter or jelly or chocolate.
I don't see how they could.
They're such a tiny vehicle for 3 big flavors.
Right. So like the caramel ones are good because
that's the texture.
Yes. And there's enough of the different things, but peanut butter and jelly.
They also have, which I have not tried, are peanut butter cups with jelly in them. Reese's peanut butter cups.
Oh, I haven't tried those either.
I haven't.
Reese's has so many different products out now that we just go and get one of them every little once in a while.
It's like, what is this one?
Yeah. Oh, this is good. Because they have like the wafers, like Kit Kat or whatever.
Yeah.
They have some of those.
I haven't tried
those.
those. Oh.
I like them. Yeah.
I'm not, the thing I don't like about Kit Kat is the wafer, though.
Oh. I like the crunch.
It's a little bit styrofoamy for me.
I had a bunch of British candies from that Rocket. What is it called? There's a candy
Rocket
place.
Fizz?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That my husband just brought me like a bunch of different things. So each night we would split one of them because I shared.
I had my niece one time for my birthday gave me it was a subscription. I can't remember if it was 3 or 6 months. It was a snack box subscription. And it sent you snacks from different countries.
Yeah, we had it for a while.
It was not run of the mill by any stretch of the imagination. I was like, what the actual fuck is this?
That's why I've discovered that I like when I go to another country, always go to a convenience store or like a corner store or whatever and try their junk food.
Yes.
Like, that's fun in Mexico, the type of junk food that there is. So we do that and we try something new. And I already asked Brits what I should try at a corner store in England. So I have a screenshot of it so that I can try some snacks one night when I'm there. I think the town I'm ending in isn't big enough to have much, but...
Oh, you never know. Junk food, they might. Because...
They might now.
Yes.
The thing is, my husband worked there, and it was an obscure little town. It didn't even have a hotel.
Oh.
Had the place we're ending is now, it's like a spa, is what it's considered. It's considered a spa town. So it's basically these big B&B type things. But it's the place I'll be staying last is where Agatha Christie was discovered after she disappeared.
Right.
What is it? The Old Swan or something like that.
Something.
So that's our final stay place. They have what looks like a magical high tea. I don't know if I'm going to do the high tea or not, but I found it interesting because here, everywhere you go, if there's a high tea, it's the same finger sandwiches everywhere. It's an egg salad, a cucumber, and usually like a tuna or something like that, or like a chicken salad. Yep. Not a tuna. And I cannot have two of those three things because they have mayo.
Mayonnaise.
And I was like, oh, well, I wouldn't do it. And I went and looked at the menu and I was like, wait a second. These are not the bullshit sandwiches
and also,
we have here.
When we were in England, we found that they were very accommodating to vegans. So they might be able to.
Yeah, because I think that the person doing this writing tour, she, I think, is vegetarian or vegan because I've seen her post recipes and she made a point of saying they do have vegan or vegetarian versions of these because one place will be staying. They have it with the like the puff pastry around the meat or whatever, and they actually have a vegan version.
Ooh,
like Wellington? Yeah. So I was like, I might have to try a vegetable Wellington.
Yeah.
So I think that I'll be able to eat pretty good vegetarian on this trip. Get some fish.
I was going to say there is a new tea place in town, Tea and Tidbits.
Yes, I saw that.
They're good. I've been there twice now. And yes, I will say they had a very good cucumber sandwich. Their chicken salad it slaps. It's really good. What was the other one? I can't remember. I know there were 3 kinds of sandwiches and I couldn't tell you what they were. And then you got 2 scones and I'm like, there's nobody on this planet that needs to eat 2 scones on top of finger sandwiches and desserts.
Don't judge me.
Finger sandwiches and desserts and 2 scones. But you can take a box and take them home.
That's the thing. I think what I'm most likely going to do is they have a cream tea and then like scone and marmalade and clotted cream and stuff. And that's what I want.
Yes.
I need to remember. I can't do the lemon curd because it has egg in it. And actually cucumber sandwiches sometimes have mayonnaise. So that's the problem. I can make them at home. But yeah. So we'll see.
So the first time I went, I really liked everything. The second time I went, one of the desserts, I want to say it had a Mardi Gras, kind of a vaguely Mardi Gras theme to it. And I can't remember what it was. I think it was some kind of bread pudding with I'm trying to think of the sauce they put on it. And I said, it was a very fruity sauce. It wasn't like a buttered rum sauce or a hard sauce or something like that. And I said, I'm not a big fan of bread pudding because it's just soggy
can't
bread.
Do the texture.
Well, and it's egg.
So it's good I can't do the texture.
But I don't know. The flavor of the bread pudding itself did not go with the fruity flavor of the sauce. Okay. On their own, they were fine, because I tasted the sauce by itself and I was like, this does not go. This is bad. This is wrong together. But everything else was, you get a little tart and you get we had a posset. It's like a more liquidy pudding. I'm not a big pudding person, but
I like pudding, but I think if it was the sound of liquidy pudding is not in any way intriguing me. So no, thank you. But okay. But yeah, I'm also going to have to at some point get fish and chips. Just like real fish and chips.
Yes. I just had fish and chips at Carefree Bar and Grill.
Oh, okay.
Which by the time this airs will be a memory.
It will be gone. Yeah, we went there and they were out of bison.
Yeah. When did you
go? That day. I don't know, a couple days ago.
Okay.
But I know they had more bison the next day, and then they've run out of so much stuff, which is good. People are supporting them because people liked them. They were a neighborhood establishment, and the landlord appears to have done a significant raise on the rent, is what it sounds like. So, yeah, they are out. An indigenous business here in Colorado Springs. I'm pissed about it, but...
Yeah, because the food was good, the service was good, like you said, it was a real neighborhood place. They really worked hard to build community, and they were successful.
They managed that after opening just as COVID was exploding and everything shut down. So, like, they almost got screwed right from the very beginning. I did see people were like, I hope that you're going to try and open a new place. And she said, there's no money, honey. We spend it all on this place. So, it's not coming back. But... And she even said that it sounded like they might be heading back home. What was it? Wisconsin or so, it's something up there. So, Michigan? I don't know.
Because we went in Wednesday night and because I wanted the fried chicken. And she's like, I'm sorry, we're out.
Yeah. They were out of a couple things. The pasta they were out of. But when they were out of the first thing that Jeffrey asked for, which was a Dr. Pepper, and they were like, we ran out. And then she explained that they were like, running out of stuff because, of course, they're closing in a week. And so when we chose our food, we chose like a backup for everything just in case. So luckily, because I was going to it was the only place I could get a bison French dip.
And their bison French dip was good.
It was good. Yeah. So.
I went back on Friday for lunch with a friend and had the fried chicken. And I was like, I'm so sad.
It was the thing. I never tried it, and it was supposed to be really good, but I never tried it. And I was like, I'm not going to start now. So we didn't even try to order that. I was like, I don't want to like it.
Yeah, you would have.
And then it'll be gone.
It was damn good fried chicken.
So, yeah.
Yesterday, they posted on Facebook, yesterday being a Saturday, they had run out. They said,
all we have is their bar late night menu.
Yeah, we just have the bar menu. We have run out of food.
Good.
Which I'm glad for them.
Hopefully they'll run out of liquor too, because that shit was expensive. So hopefully that all gets worn down.
People seem to be having their cocktails. So
yeah, I had because I had survived Hell Day at work.
Oh,
and so I was like, I had a mule, but it was the Hornitos tequila mule instead. So that was good.
They had we were talking to at Friday lunch, the bartender who was also waiting tables, the friend I was with ordered a Bloody Mary. And the waitress was telling us that she has a guy come in who says, make it as hot as you can. So somebody brought her some habaneros and she put one in the shaker and muddled it. She said it was hard because she was muddling it away from her face and trying not to touch it. And she said, because the guy says, if I can't drink it, I will pay double for it. So whenever he comes in, they just whoop on whatever insanely hot stuff they can find. It's like, why?
This is a Native American establishment, not like a Mexican or Asian or Indian establishment for the spice.
Yeah, but I don't get it. I don't want food to hurt me.
Yeah. I don't want to not be able to enjoy the thing and then pay double for that privilege.
Or I don't want to drink something that's going to render me unable to taste anything else for like 2 days.
Yes, that is my other thing. I only go so spicy because I'm like, it's not fun for me that I can't taste anything else.
Yeah.
So I get it if that's what makes you happy. Yay. But I want to taste it. So, yeah. I watched this show on, I think it was on Prime. I know a lot of people are canceling, not a lot, a handful of people are canceling.
Some people.
Amazon stuff. But anyway, it was on there. It was called Clawfoot. Yeah, I think that was on Prime. And it was this, I guess you would call it a psychological thriller or whatever. It was so weird. But I loved it because, like, I swear on all this holy, every character was a sociopath. Including the character who's our main character that we're liking.
Huh.
But she has it's these two rich women. And the woman wakes up and some dude shows up at the door and says, your husband hired me to redo your bathroom. And she says, he didn't tell me. And he's like, is this signature right? And she's like, I guess it might be. And ultimately, she lets me, he's this complete piece of shit dude, such a dick the whole time, making little passive-aggressive comments and eventually aggressive comments. And she ends up having to, we'll just say there are some people that need to be cut up in the clawfoot tub that she didn't want in the first place that he said he was hired to put in to the bathroom she designed already. And so the clawfoot, it's all about
the tub.
These antics that, of course, escalate kind of like a heist movie does, but.
I watched, on what? Maybe, I can't remember what it was on. It's a series. It's a British series, comedy series. It's old. It's at least 10 or 12 years old. It's called Vicious.
I've heard of that.
It's a half-hour sitcom, and it's Sir Ian McKellen and Sir somebody else whose name I don't recognize. And they're a gay couple who've been living together for 50 years, 49 in the first series. And it is so over the top, full of stereotypes. But at the same time, Sir Ian McKellen is gay. Yeah. So if he was comfortable making those jokes, who am I to take that away from him? It did make me laugh out loud several times because they have the friend who's always stopping over and the young man who moves into the flat upstairs and, they're trying to hit on him and he's just not having it. And so it was comical and kind of over the top, but it had some very touching, nice moments.
Okay. Interesting. Where are you watching that?
I can't remember what streaming service had it. If it was it on Tubi? Maybe?
Perhaps.
I just typed in Vicious and it said, this is how you can watch it.
Okay.
I said, I will take it. Because I kept seeing clips of it.
Right.
On, probably on Facebook.
Yeah. I'll be watching during the, not the writing retreat portion, which will be work it, but during the portion where my husband and I are just there relaxing, I'll be taking in I'm hoping to actually watch Graham Norton when he's on a Friday night.
Yes.
And just look around and see what else is on. So that should be fun in its own way too. So we'll see. I officially have all our places booked. I just need to book 2 tours. And other than that, nothing strict while we're...
Wait, where are you going?
I'll be in Yorkshire and
he's coming to meet
and then he's coming out to meet me and we're moving over to Scotland and we'll be at Edinburgh and then Inverness. In the lowlands to the highlands. We'll experience both.
And when is this? Roughly?
Summer.
Okay. That's
I will be gone from my home.
No, I was like, I don't want just roughly, I thought it was summer, so that works.
Yep.
Because I'm like, I
got my plane tickets.
Nice.
Because there was a direct flight, Denver to Heathrow. They took it away. It's back. So I was able to get the no stops in between, no transferring planes, no.
That's how we did it when we went, was Denver to Heathrow.
Nice.
Heathrow is fucking enormous.
I figure, and I'm going to have to find a train to where I need to go.
And it's noisy.
And it's going to freak me the fuck out. And I always thought when I went to England for the first time, I'd be going with Jeff, who went there for years, for like over a decade for work, probably 2 decades for work. Nope. All by my fucking self. Figuring out the money by myself, although I've heard that they take, Apple Pay and Google Pay actually very commonly, so I'll be
probably
good there.
I know we had no problem using credit.
Yeah, and I'll have my credit card.
That was fine.
So,
and because when we went, Lucy met us at the airport, and of course it's been hours, and we've been in a plane, and now we're in a new country in a different time zone. We just followed her. So we did, but when she went over, it was the same thing. She was all by herself and had to figure out how to get her happy little self from Heathrow I think she had to take a bus. I can't remember. She got on the bus and immediately fell asleep, which was fine.
Yeah.
But, I was just like, here you go. Bon voyage, as Bugs Bunny would say. But yeah, when she met us, she's just like, okay, we're going here, we're doing this, and we just followed her. I
know a couple specific places I want to go, and other than that, we're staying at one B&B for like one night because it's interim while we're heading somewhere else. In Sterling, which is where the Wallace Monument is, like William Wallace, and big ass famous castle, and this neat. It popped up somewhere because now, of course, when I was doing all the planning, now my ads are like half for Scotland, and half of them now because I keep talking about it are weak who's. The Highland cows. I'm like, I will see one of these. God damn it. I will work to see one of these. And I was like, I'm coming back with a stuffy, right?
I think as long as you don't come back with an actual cow, you'll be fine.
Whatever. So that's my plan. But anyway, it popped up and they had all this neat architecture in this little town. And I was like, all right, I'm in. So we're staying there one night.
Lots of places. There's so many interesting little spots.
Right? I'm like, I want to see some manner of stone megalith or whatever. Yes. So I still have to work on figuring out one that's on her because I found a cool one, but it's so far off the route. I'm like, no, reel it in, girl. Okay, you can't see everything in Scotland in one week and a half trip. No. So yeah, I was like, nice. But I was like, how far is the big Stonehenge from London? Because we are going to spend our last couple days in London. Because, he's been there. He's like, whatever. And I'm like, okay, but I have not been there. So I would like to spend
London.
We're going to do a Jack the Ripper tour at night.
Of course.
Because I tell you, he was like, well, yes, we'll do a Jack the Ripper tour. And then, of course, the underground, because I already did a whole podcast episode fascinated by the underground. There are multiple tour companies, though, and I was like, I don't know which one's the best one. But I think I'm going with one called Meerkat or something like that. Mm-hmm. But because I liked that their tour guides are authors that have published on...
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Same thing with the Jack the Ripper one I found was... Nice. This one has authors who have written about Jack the Ripper who lead the tours. And they also do a small group because most of the tours are like these big groups. This one keeps it down to a certain number. So
that's good.
I just have to book it when it comes available because it looks like they only open it up a month before. And I was like, damn it. I want to have it all done now. But yeah, we're staying in like people's garden homes.
Nice.
Yeah. I know there's like a ban on Airbnb now for people who are calling for a boycott of it. And I was like, I already booked it. Yeah. I'm not changing that shit. I'm not doing that to the individuals who I booked with who have nothing to do with the owner of it.
I did like the fact that some of those articles gave you alternatives.
Yeah.
Because I will look at because I think I've used VRBO before. But I know if I had already booked everything, I wouldn't be mucking about.
I would be screwing over individuals, not some huge billionaire who doesn't give a shit if I cancel some. No. So, yeah.
They do have vegetarian haggis.
I feel like if I try haggis, I'm going to try haggis.
Try haggis. It was delicious.
Yeah, I'm not going to... all well and good, but I feel like I've failed if I do vegetarian haggis, and I'm not an actual full-blown vegetarian.
Because, Thing One had the vegetarian haggis.
That's different. But...
Yes, because she is a vegetarian. And also, if you ever see it offered, get the sticky toffee pudding.
Yes, I've had some once that blew my mind. Yes. So I will definitely be getting a sticky toffee pudding somewhere. Yes. So good. And it's not even chocolate.
I know.
And I craved it.
I know.
That's huge.
I know.
For me to crave a dessert that's not even chocolate, that's insane. I did like the lemon bars at conference that we had for a while, although I could not eat a whole one. Like I got really over them real fast, but I could eat like half of one and be like, this is divine. Yes. Also, here's a chocolate chip cookie to wash that down with. Because usually that was an option somewhere around the same time. So,
it could have been the snack.
Yeah, it could have been the snack. Yeah. Plus, Jeffrey usually gave me like a care package of Coca-Cola and chocolate. So I would have my own chocolate if I needed it.
Like I said, I might try to steal your shoes, but I would never try to steal your chocolate.
Touch my chocolate. I will share with Jeffrey. I will share with my children. But other than that, everybody else is just out of luck.
Could just fuck right off.
They can absolutely just get their own fucking chocolate. There is no reason. There is cheap chocolate available. This is America. Go find your own. That's the pioneer spirit. All right. So I wanted to just mention damn it. It all went away. I had it up and everything, and then it closed. But because missing and murdered Indigenous humans tend to get overlooked, I wanted to mention Emily Pike, who was a 14-year-old girl from the San Carlos Apache tribe in Arizona. And she disappeared, and they found her dismembered body. And really nobody has heard about it.
No.
So her death was, and they don't know the exact date, February of 2025. And so just a baby. She was, 15?
Yeah.
14, yeah. So I wanted to throw that out there because it gets overlooked far too much. And it's not just women in it, although that has been a massive problem. But a lot of people are going by MMIP now, which is missing and murdered Indigenous persons. Or I've seen like C for cousins because it's just a term that, we tend to use for it's usually not somebody you're related to, frankly, but I just wanted to put that out there because she deserves to be heard about too. And I would do an episode on her if there was information. So maybe in the future, but of course there's not yet. And I'm not sure her disappearance was heavily looked into to begin with. So
it doesn't.
Who knows what that investigation will look like? But just a baby and dismembered, and who knows what else, because that's not all been released yet. So anyway, on that note, we're out.
Yes.
Exeunt.
Yes, and we will talk to you all next month.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
Find us on Facebook and Instagram or at our website, mysteriesmonstersmayhem.com.
Please like, rate, and review, follow, and share wherever your favorite podcasts are downloaded.
Thank you for listening and supporting our podcast. We'll be back with more shenanigans.